There's always a, it's kind of like the tide where the ocean meets the land. There's always this shifting boundary between our experience of what we know and our experience of the unknown. We don't always focus on this, but when you sit down in meditation, we like to, our natural mode of operating the world as a human being is, at least as a mental human being, is to stay far inside the known. But that's really an illusion. The unknown is just constantly there. And so you can sit down in meditation and you can feel, what do I know? What are the pre-existing assumptions that I'm bringing into this moment? And you see, when I say that like that, it sounds like philosophy and you're supposed to list the assumptions, but it's not. It's the feeling in the body and being of of your pre-existing assumptions. And you can just sort of feel it. It's a whole thing. It's the whole thing you're bringing into the moment. It's why you're meditating. It's what you expect the meditation to do. It's how you're feeling. It's what you expect your feelings to be. It's what you think your environment is, how it should be. It's what you think your problems are. If you can get a sense of that experience of, oh yeah, this is what I bring to the present moment, then you can also get a sense of the boundary. And this is definitely more, yeah, it's a little subtle, but there's a boundary, there's a shape to what you know, and there's the other side of it. When you can feel into that, you could actually flip your whole experience. In fact, many ways that's what we're doing in meditation. That's the practice to change our center from what we know to what we don't know. And so often it's necessary, but it's one of the most significant obstacles to spiritual depth is we think we know what we're doing on the spiritual path. We think we know what we're doing when we sit down to meditate. We think the teacher knows what we're doing. And so we sit inside that knowing and pretend we operate from that knowing and are acting on the world to make it spiritually the way we want it, which includes ourselves. This is why we get stuck as people. This is why being a person is a kind of stuckness, actually. It's because we like being inside the known and we carry the known with us. So we sit inside of the bubble of the known. And so we're never going to be outside of what we already know. And since it's from the past, it's just going to be the past coming with us. Or we can sit down. And this is really what is meant by coming into the present is reaching into the unknown. This always here and is always so much bigger than what we know. So there's that thought that you're used to, that you think you know. There's that emotion that you're used to, that you think you know. There's that picture of the room you live in that you think you know. There's that feeling of the body that you think you know. And then underneath that, around that, inside of that is reality, the present moment, which you do not know. You do not know until you come into contact with it. And that's the only kind of knowing you get of the present moment. It's not the knowing of the mind. It's not something to remember or to think about or to analyze. It's the knowing of directly being in contact. So, but if you think you know now that the practice of meditation is to get rid of the known, well, you're back in the same trap. So we just sit here accepting this experience of knowing and not knowing, of controlling and not controlling, of doing and not doing. Anytime you find yourself doing something and you can be awake to that, you will then also be in contact with the not doing that is around that. Anytime you find yourself planning or remembering, hoping, fixing, versions of knowing, of thinking you know what you want, thinking you know what to do, thinking you know what's wrong. And all you have to do is be awake to that experience of knowing. If you're fully awake to it, you will immediately be in contact with the not knowing, because that stuff is made of the present moment, which is undifferentiated, unbounded, unknown. Our true self is a thing beyond knowing and not knowing. And there are times you can literally feel the known sort of shrinking into a sphere, into a ball, into a marble, into a pinprick, and sort of just disappearing. And so that you reside in the not known. But you can also experience the not known shrinking into a ball, a marble, a pinprick, with the known. You must understand that the acceptance that we're always practicing and moving towards, that we use in the most simple, everyday way at the beginning of meditation, is the same acceptance that is our true nature, that is the acceptance of being and non-being. But you know, there's an opportunity to feel the mind crack open when you ask who is accepting being and non-being. From what vantage point can someone accept being and non-being? Only from a vantage beyond being and non-being. And any taste you get of that allows you to start to taste the tidal boundary between being and non-being, between the known and the unknown. And just like the millions of miles of beach on the globe, it's the same. There's just millions of miles of boundary between the known and the unknown. And it's not a straight line, it's an organic shifting. Things are going from unbeing, non-being into being and back and forth and back and forth. And only from this vantage point can you allow the most efficient, effortless, painless rearrangement of that which is and that which is not into what's next. The yearning for what's next, or the fear of what's next, or the hope for what's next is one of the most basic human activities. And often we think of it as sort of an obstacle in meditation, but in some deep way, this expectation of what's next, this energy of opening to what's next is your true nature. The mind needs to figure out what's next, but your true nature sits in between what is and what is not, and it just, without reaching out, without pushing away, it just is opening a space for things to disappear and things to appear. And we use the present moment sensory experience in meditation to drop us out of the normal narrative of mind, the known. But presence is much bigger than the present moment. And presence is outside of time, so it's not a moment. So, really, all we're doing, or the simplest way to practice this, is just the normal impermanence practice. You just notice the boundary between what's here and what's not here, the boundary between as things change. Something goes or something arrives. And if you're just noticing that, then you're focused not actually on the thing that's arriving or the thing that's disappearing. You're moving slowly into the changingness itself. And that's a space in between being and non-being. And it's very magical. It's very much like a children's book where you find a doorway in between, you know, two panels of a wall into another dimension of being. So what is this very, very special category? It's very, very small compared to what is not. So if you spent any time traversing the much bigger space of non-being and then even beyond being and non-being, then you can come back to your being, to your existence, to what is, and then all the way back, even beyond just being into the concrete particulars of your sensory life. Right now, you can do this. You just come back to your body and the room and the tastes and smells and sounds and feels, and just feel how special it is. With all its creaks and all its problems and all its pleasures and all of it, everything that's always there. And you get to see now what's next in existence, in this magical story that we get to live out. And only loses its magic though when you think you know what's next. So come back to your body as a baby, beginner's mind. And with that same attitude, you can start to move this body and open your eyes. And really, depending on how deep you were there, you really might want to take some time to really land in your room, in your body, in your space on this planet, what city you're in. And, I always like to look over my shoulders. There's a basic biological sense of safety when you can see 360 around yourself. Find things you like and let your body move how it wants. And in here, if it's possible to have the healthiest kind of experience where you learn to transcend this life and body, and yet that only makes the life more sacred and more alive.